Okay, you guys are up and streaming, so you're good to go.
Oh, thank
Okay,
you.
good. Thank you.
All right, great. Let's see. It is Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. I'll call the remote meeting of the school committee to order. Thank you for joining us this evening at this remote live stream school committee meeting. Due to the impacts of COVID-19 virus, some aspects of the open meeting law have been suspended. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting and tonight's public hearing of the Westborough School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can listen to and view this meeting in progress by tele or video conference broadcast on Westborough TV's government channels, Verizon 28 and Charter 192. It's streamed online at westboroughTV.org live stream government. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the public hearing designated for public comment by emailing school-committee@westboroughk12.org. Also this evening, members of the public who would like to participate in the public hearing scheduled for 6:30 p.m. can join via Google Meet at meet.google.com/sso-ztzc-oeh, or you could join by phone by calling 1-530-584-9377 and use the PIN number 128-166-532. That's again if you want to join the meeting live during the public comments portion of the public hearing this evening. Any votes we take this evening will be roll call votes to remote participation. Thank you, as always, to Westborough TV for covering the broadcast. Tonight we have our Superintendent, Amber Bach, Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Daniel Mayer, our Director of Finance and Administration, Irene Oliver, Sarah Delay, Chair of the Westborough School Committee, Vice Chair, and school committee members Lisa Enberg, Raghu Nandan, and Kristen Vincent. We have Adam Depolite, our school committee student representative, and Jen Benton, our school committee recording secretary. I will now read through the agenda for this evening. We will approve minutes from April 29th, 2020 regular session. We will have a superintendent's report, assistant superintendent's report, director of finance administration reports, and school committee member reports. We will have a building project update. On or after 6:30 p.m., we will start our public hearing on school choice. Then we will take citizens' requests. We will review our annual stipend memo. We will get an update on distance learning. We will vote on the proposed budget reductions. We will review the school committee meeting dates for 2021 school year. We will discuss the superintendent's review process and we'll receive an update on the Assabet Valley Collaborative third quarter. We do not have a need for an executive session this evening. And again, due to the remote format, we'll be taking any citizens' requests by email. Please email the committee after the meeting with your comments at school-committee@westboroughk12.org. Thank you. All right, so I'm ready for a motion for the minutes from 4/29/20.
So move.
Thank you. Second on the minutes?
Second.
kindergarten numbers are tracking a little bit lower than the last several years. So we have May numbers now. Now the May numbers may be artificially suppressed because of COVID, but people do know they can register online. In any case, we are tracking that, and usually at this time of year too, we're also planning for we're inviting in our prospective kindergartners to do screenings, and obviously we can't do that right now. So there's discussion going on about when and how we might be able to handle that, but we are going to put a letter out this week to welcome the new kindergarten families, to let them know that we're planning and excited for them to join us, and that we will keep them updated about kindergarten screening and what our plans are as we get some clarity. But at a minimum, the screening will not happen until the summertime, and possibly not until we open up in the fall. So stay tuned for that. But the other issue, just so you know, at this time of year, is we are having to start preparing for hiring for next year, because we have retirements and this is hiring season. We get the best candidates, and so we're posting. It's retirements. People are moving on. So there's always open positions, and we're actively working on our system of hiring during COVID. Which obviously, interviewing is one thing. We like to do class demonstrations. We're going to figure that out as we go. We may ask for, we're trying to figure out, we're having active conversations about the best way to screen candidates and have them simulate a classroom presentation, whether it be electronically or we, sort of the interview, coming in and actually presenting to Westborough students online, or whether they actually are the interview committee does some kind of mock presentation where they ask them to present the lesson. So we're figuring it out as we go. But those are my updates for now, and I'll give more updates later about the business learning.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
So now it looks like, sorry, back to the meeting business. It looks like Steve muted. Rebecca, can you try to mute too, just to see if we can get rid of that background noise? If you don't mind. Okay, we'll try that for a little bit. Okay. Thank you, Daniel.
Yep.
Okay, so Reen, sorry, do you have a report this evening?
Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's bearing their, being home and dealing with everything and working with the family and, working with the work. But I just wanted to bring on a subject of the kindergarten warrant. So we have a warrant out there for a town meeting of $808,751,000. And because of some of the savings we might see and incur with maybe transportation cost savings and other, maybe electricity, I'm still trying to figure that all out, that we might be able to reduce the warrant article by $106,000 by moving some of the salaries off of that kindergarten revolving account onto the general fund, using this year's funding, which would, reduce next year's warrant amount by $106,000. So I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it does to us. And because it's future cost savings, and what I need is a discussion and then a possible vote for that. And it's approximately from June 11th to the end of the year on payroll for about 9 people.
Okay, so do you think that we should sit on that for a few minutes, and when we discuss the budget, we could, since we're voting the
Yeah,
budget.
I'm going to request that we table that, Madam Chair, until we reach the budget, and then we can pull that discussion back forward. You don't have to vote on that yet. It's just you want to surface that for discussion as we go. So why don't we return to it after you get to the budget section?
Okay.
Thank you, Amber.
Thank you, Irene. Okay. Let's see. Kristen, do you have anything this evening?
I just wanted to circle back to a question I had asked at the last meeting about students getting their belongings back from school. And since I asked that question, I have noticed a flurry of activity happening at many of the schools. So there's lots of projects underway for students to be able to return to school to pick up items or actually have items just placed into their car. No one actually needs to get out of their car at Gibbons. You can just pull up and they'll put things right in your car. And I know some teachers have actually been visiting their students to drop off materials in driveways and on front porches. And I heard from one teacher at Fales that this has been one of the best days for her to be able to drive all around town and visit her students and drop off materials. So thank you to all of the teachers and custodians who have been helping to clean out lockers and gather all the materials together for our students and be able to get them to them in safe ways. We really, really appreciate all the extra work to get all that stuff back to everybody. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Regu, did you have anything this evening?
I don't have anything this evening, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, do you have anything?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Steve, I was gonna cut ahead of you quickly. And oh, Adam, I forgot you. I'm sorry. Adam, your turn. Adam, go.
Thank
Sorry.
you. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I just have a quick update tonight. First off, on the Westborough Fitness Challenge, we've gone over 95,000 miles. So keep it up, Westborough. You're doing a really great job. And then my second item tonight was on the communication from Mr. Callahan on the plans for the class of 2020. We have a lot of big things planned, I know, for the class. So check your emails, make sure you're reading those. We are trying to make the best of this situation. I know this isn't what we expected for the class of 2020, but a lot of people are putting in a lot of time and effort to make this as special as they can. So the class officers and Mr. Callahan, make sure you're reading those emails from them, class of 2020, because those are really important. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. I'm glad that all that got worked out, and we're happy to celebrate you guys for the rest of the month, the year, everything. So I'm looking forward to a lot of those activities. I think Amber and Daniel are going to update a little bit more on that during their update on the distance learning too. So thank you. Steve, I was going to cut you and then have you go next and do the building update at the same time, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay. So I just had a couple fun things too. I did pick up my children's locker stuff from Gibbons and went very smoothly. Very easy, quick pickup. So thank you everyone over there for coordinating that so well. Again, I have to say I love the videos being put out by the staff and the principals. Mrs. Stannard had a blooper reel at the end of her last video, and she had her kids telling jokes and outtakes. And it was just really fun to see, like, a sign of the times, like her doing her job with like her full family involved. So it was awesome. I loved it. And the Westborough Education Foundation is running their spring care program. And CARE stands for Celebrate and Appreciate Remarkable Educators. And usually you'd make a donation to the Education Foundation in the name of a remarkable educator. But right now they're just asking for videos, pictures, notes, poems, songs, any creative thing you've got. You can email those all to wef@westborougheducationfoundation.com, and they're posting all those on the website and sending them to the person that you're acknowledging, and also hopefully trying to make a video, another fun video for everyone to watch towards the end of the year. So submit those to Left Care. And that is all I have. So I'll turn it over to Steve for his building update.
Well, last week we talked a little bit about the fact that because of the COVID, that the normal bid process for the Commonwealth has been pretty much restricted, and as a result of that, those jobs that are out there to be bid and still in the pipeline have been receiving relatively very good bids relative to the budget. And so where we are on the Fales project, between the qualified trade sub-bids as well as the other bids that are being processed by the by Gilbane Construction, we bid about 70% of the job and made awards to that. And as of now, we are under budget. We have 30% more to go, and we're hopeful that the balance will also remain under budget. To actually follow up with another thing I said at our last meeting, which is that we had gone out to bid and are out to bid on the sprinkler system at Hastings, and we have seen a lot of interest in that particular bid based on other companies who have asked for the bid package. And so we're hopeful that the outcome of that bid will be within the budget that was established by the town. Also, for those of you who may have seen the presentation that was put on by the project team last night, roughly about 7:45, so that's an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes into the selectmen's meeting. If you didn't see it, I'm sure it'll be rebroadcast this week. And it's a total update on what's going on with the project, as well as a discussion about some issues that we've had with soil erosion and the project team's reaction to that. We thank the Board of Selectmen for giving us time on their agenda to make that presentation. And, our whole point in the process at Fields is to be transparent and provide the town, good information when we have it. And unfortunately, last night it wasn't so good, but at least the information to allow confidence, I think, in the engineering and design team that's working for the town in regards to the Fields project. We believe that we provided the background information that we are aware of in terms of the problems that we've experienced and the process by which we are eliminating each one of the potential sources of the, if you will, cloudy water that's been discharged into the pond at the base of the hill. So the project moves on. We'll be completing excavation shortly. Some construction work will begin soon, and we'll be placing loam back on some of the disturbed surfaces as soon as we can, so we can get some vegetation on the exposed terrain, which will help reduce any potential future episodes as we have experienced in some of the very heavy rains of recent days. So that's pretty much a summary, and we would invite anybody who wishes to watch that part of the Board of Selectmen's meeting, which, as I said, is approximately an hour and 45 minutes after the start of the meeting. So that's it. Thank you.
So Steve, you're talking about the rooting system would help to maintain that soil in that area, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, in other words, if we can get a growth of grass or something else that basically will slow down the water runoff and also protect the soil surface, it will significantly reduce the amount of problems that we've had going forward. So that's it for me.
Well, thank you. Sorry, I was trying to get to my mute button. I know, but I need like 3 more minutes because I can't start my public hearing before 6:30. So
Do you want me to move the stipend memo forward since it's not for action tonight, but just a review? What's your preference?
sure. I know, because we can start anytime after 6:30. I know it's only 2 minutes, but if we had
So I'll
some-
start that action, Sarah, and you can set it aside and I can continue it, whatever you want. Just, step in and give me a high sign. If you want, I can take that action item and move forward on presenting it briefly.
Okay, sure.
So I would ask that Daniel pull that memo up. You know that annually we provide to you for a generalized vote the rollover of stipend positions for next year. So there's a process by which, and we detail it in the memo each year, that the series of clubs and organizations and information needed for you to vote annually for each of the stipends. So we track clubs, and they take a 2-year cycle to be accepted. We track their membership, their range of hours, and then we place them into the grid for a stipend amount, which follows a criteria that we have established over time as a committee. And then within that, each year, if you want to scroll down, Daniel, we bring forward to you an annual process by which some stipend clubs or activities might pass out of existence. You know, they've run their course, or they've been redesigned into other clubs, and then you have ones that come in that are new. With the growth of the high school and just and even Gibbons over the last several years, there's been a lot of club activity, which we consider really exciting. And so there are actually 19 requests within this cycle where clubs have really increased at the high school, which we think is very exciting, and at Gibbons as well. So if you scroll down, I think I have this memo so I can actually look at it up close myself. So in looking at that, you see a highlight of we've placed in, we brought back the unified track. Remember, we used to be a joint committee, a joint team with Algonquin, and we then grew so large that we needed to bring that unified track home and run our own organization. That has continued to grow, and we need to add a varsity assistant to manage the numbers there. So that's very exciting to have had our unified track come back to Westborough and to stabilize with such size that they're ready to make sure that they have that they have the assistant varsity assistant available. And you see then a range of clubs, and the amount that the club is paid is based upon the number of hours, the amount of work that they utilize within that framework, and it's really exciting to see the types of things that are being provided. Typically, I will present this to you, and you can see in the action that it indicates that a portion of these will be covered within the allotment of the stipend amount that's already there. And if there's overflow with these new clubs, we pay for them for 1 year out of the student activity account. We track that cost, we look at that cycle, and then we roll it into budget the following year. So I'm going to stick with that methodology. And so you'll see that for the FY21 year, we will carry any increases. It won't be this full amount. We would carry it out of the student activity fee, which is what it's designed for, and then bring it forward over time to allot it into the budget when it's appropriate to do so. So there's no action for you tonight. I always give this to you. You get an opportunity to review it. You can email or ask questions. I can certainly take questions now. And then at the next meeting, you would vote the acceptance of the clubs for next year. Any questions tonight? So that's this update.
All right, any questions on, Lisa, you have a question?
I just had a quick question. I was curious about stipends in the budget for this year, in terms of, a cutoff of the third of the year. What was our policy on stipends? I knew, what we were thinking of when it comes to salary. Are stipends separate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, we maintained the stipend payments for our clubs and organizations, and they've been doing a lot of active work as organizations. A lot of them are doing the card calls, the service work. They've been doing the types of things that fall within their mission as much as they can. For example, some of the math clubs have shifted to online opportunities. Club managers have stayed in contact with kids and picked up some of the wellness work that we've wanted, which is about connection and feeling supported within these times, to get the kids together to be able to talk and interact together. Some clubs have been more active than others in that, but in general, our feeling was that maintaining the stability of those connections and letting the club advisors move forward with them, as have done our coaches for the spring, have put out training protocols and met virtually with teams. They actually just put out a team video today to interact with kids. I visited the other day when one of the coaches was actually doing a virtual training session with a kid. So we maintained payment of all stipends this spring with the expectation that they would do the kinds of things that I'm detailing here.
Great. I actually can attest to the softball team has been meeting weekly, as a team, one, to get to know the new coaches, and sort of stay connected. And, I think a lot of them are doing that. And heard about the debate team, heard about a couple of other clubs that are trying to maintain some semblance of activity. So thank you. But thank you for answering that question.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, so and we can take more questions on the stipend, probably with the budget too, because if anyone thinks of anything in between now and then. So being after 6:30, we can start our public hearing on school choice. This is an annual hearing that we do, an annual vote we take. In Massachusetts, the inter-district school choice program allows a parent to enroll his or her child in a school district that is not the child's home district. Because of space limitations, not all school districts accept out-of-district students under this program. And every year, the school committee in each district decides whether it will accept new enrollments under this program, and if so, in which grades. So having given a brief synopsis there, I need a motion to enter a public hearing, please.
I move that we move into the public hearing that's been noticed for this evening at 6:30.
Thank you. A second on the public hearing?
I'll second entering a public hearing.
Thank you. And then I just need a roll call vote on entering the public hearing. Kristen, you can-
Vincent, Vincent, yes.
Okay. Raghu? Thank you. Lisa?
Edinburgh, yes.
And Susan?
Durrett, yes.
And Dulé, yes. Thank you. Okay, so we're officially in the public hearing. So in the public hearing, first I'll call on any members of the public that wish to speak on school choice, and then I'll take any comments from the board. And then after we hear any discussion, then we make a motion. Then I need a motion for on school choice and a roll call vote on that as well. So we do have a member of the public, Shelby Marshall is here, and she would like to speak on school choice.
Actually, Sarah, thank you so much for having me on tonight. I guess I'll turn my video on just in case. There we go. They can officially see me.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I said your name, but
Right.
where you live, your
Protocol. Sorry, Shelby Marshall, 7 Charles Street. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I really wanted to attend this meeting, really more to listen and understand the vote that will be taken, support the past action. The prior votes on school choice. So I'm really just here to listen. I appreciate that opportunity. I have no direct comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you. We're happy to have someone participate. It's our first remote public hearing, so thanks for helping us out with giving us a public person. So we appreciate that. Okay, so no other members of the public have.
Madam Chair, I would just add a comment for the record if possible. If people can just make sure they're muting their mics along the way, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Raghu, do you mind muting again?
He just did, thank you. So one of the important things that I make sure to note as superintendent of schools to you is to indicate on the record that we have a very robust and active enrollment in our district and class guidelines that are within active use by our own current residents, and therefore it remains my strong recommendation that we not participate in school choice because we have a stable and continually growing population in Westborough from local residents. So I support the decision at this time and recommend that you vote not to participate. So thank you.
Thank you. Any members of the board want to comment or have any questions? Lisa?
I just wanted to, my perception, my idea about school choice, having, read through the Mass General Law about school choice, is that I think of our system as being, full, in the sense that it's not like we have, I think of it as a space issue, and that, I think of us as at capacity for our school system, and that to open it up would create, changes in so many aspects of operations and budget that I agree with Amber Bach that we should decline school choice for this year as well.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board like to make a comment? Question? All right, seeing no further comments, I do concur with Lisa and Amber that, due to our robust enrollment, I would also recommend that we opt out of school choice for the coming school year as well. So if anyone would like to make a motion, I would accept a motion.
I'd like to move that we opt out of school choice for Westborough for this coming year.
Thank you. All right, second on the motion made by Steve.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Kristen. And I just need another roll call vote again. Kristen, we'll start with you again.
Okay, Vincent, yes.
And then Raghu.
Raghu, yes.
Great. Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
And Steve again.
Durrett, yes.
And Dulay, yes as well. So 5-0 to opting out of school choice for the coming school year. And I will, we give that information to Andrea Macknick, Amber's secretary, and she sends that to the Department of Education prior to June 1st. So thank you for getting that public hearing done. I appreciate it. We need a motion now to leave the public hearing.
Move the motion to move the public hearing.
Great, thank you. I need a second.
Steve,
got
second.
Yep, thank you. And then we'll do another roll call vote just to leave the public hearing. Kristen.
Vincent, yes.
Raghu.
Raghu, yes.
Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
And Steve
Durrett,
again.
yes.
And Dulay, yes. Thank you. So now we are out of the public hearing on school choice. Thank you very much. And then we can, now we're actually moving on to citizens' request. We did have a citizen write in regarding an item that was on our agenda last time, this time the budget. Paul Hugel from Deerslayer Lane sent us an email. He is a member of the Advisory Finance Committee, but he was writing as a public citizen, so I'll just read what he submitted as his comment. Both school and town cuts presented so far are quite minimal, especially if gatherings are prohibited through the end of the calendar year. But I know you must plan as if you're opening in the fall as usual. If you haven't already, will there be a contingent budget that would apply if school doesn't open? Cutting buses or would force majeure clauses apply? Supplies, travel, some salaries, etc., and maybe adding virtual resources and programs. Otherwise, once approved, spending will be totally discretionary, even more than usual. So like I said, that was the comment from Mr. Hugel, and we have the discussion on the budget coming up, so we can look at that then. And then we had the stipend review. Any other comments on that? Are we good with that? Moving on. So that would bring us to our distance learning update, which is Amber and Daniel again.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And again, the stipend memo is a first pass. It's an annual process. You have time to look at the clubs. If you have any questions about the status of the stipend amount applied to them, you can email me or give me a call. We would then discuss those, during events at our you plenty of time to look at them and send me any questions. I just want to comment on clubs. I got a text from Brian Callahan, who's watching, and he said that the Girls Who Code Club have been doing virtual hackathons nationally and locally. So again, the clubs have been active, and I think has really helped to keep students connected. So kudos to that. And thank you, Lisa, for asking the question so we could add it to the comments tonight. I just want to move into what we consider this distance learning update, which is the time when we make sure that on public record, we're keeping you as a school committee and the community updated on how we're working to manage public education during this time. We will keep these comments short, but I think it's just important that you have time to hear comments and to seek feedback and to share any thoughts. So currently, one of the updates that we want to share is that we have submitted to the state and received notification from them that they are reviewing our request to make the last formal day of school in Westborough the June 17th date. We have asked parents and faculty to proceed, assuming that to be the closing of school in Westborough, and we will provide a formal update on that when we hear back. I want to thank Madam Chair for submitting all the paperwork very thoughtfully and following up with communications. She's monitoring that, and we'll make sure that she brings it forward back to school committee as soon as we hear. I also want to commend that the reason we could apply for that was because we were up and running so quickly. And again, I think as a district, I continue to hear from people around us, from faculty who have children in other districts, from friends and from colleagues that Westborough was quickly responsive and able to provide meaningful instruction very early, and that our sense of how to move forward with this has been grounded and thoughtful, and that people have appreciated the lack of frenetic response, but thoughtful, steady, and well implemented educational support. So I continue to be very, very pleased with where we are. I actually sent a virtual message to faculty at the end of last week to thank them for everything they're doing, and they continue to impress. I want to look at the fact that the workload is now stable to the changes we have made. And again, you know that across the grade levels, we've added or modified the amount of schoolwork and the pacing with which we do different types of work with students. And then Daniel presented to you at the last time that once the state came out with some of their additional clarity on power standards, we help teachers to focus on the areas where they might want to put some additional focus between now and the close of the year and increase certain types of instruction. I believe that's going very well. And we've, now moved into what we consider a stable implementation through the next 6 weeks until the close of school. I also want to comment on the fact that, as Kristen noted and did Sarah, we implemented a very well-framed materials pickup for students to be able to come to buildings. That will proceed through the next week. We started with Gibbons, and then it's rotating through the different schools based upon the time with which they can come in and pack materials and have them ready to be delivered safely to families. All of those schools are following kind of a similar methodology that I've approved and that I've run by Steve Bakari as the director of the Board of Health, to make sure that he feels that they meet the compliance of expectations for safety. Additionally, on that same way, we've moved towards bringing in teachers on a rotation, which will continue through the first week of June, to take 2 working days to post subplans and to then come in and to close out their classrooms, as they would do near the end of the year, so that we could do cleaning, maintenance, and work through the summer. That is starting now, so that we have a longer window to accomplish that, and for teachers to select 2 days, either back to back or spaced out, that work for them to accomplish that work. So I feel very good about those next stages of implementation, to kind of managing the things that need to happen. And then we're also beginning to shift towards new ways and different ways that we'll do all of the end of year closure activities. And I'll keep you updated on those as we move through each school committee meeting between now and the end of the year. I wanted to note as well that the senior week that Adam highlighted, those of you that were able to tune in last night, I just will highlight that I did attend the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health joint meeting to seek approval, which we did receive, for the conceptual development of a parade, which would allow car parade to allow seniors on Saturday, I think it's the 6th, to drop off materials, to receive some special materials and gifts, and to then have an opportunity to have that procession turn into a parade to celebrate them on the day that would have been their formal graduation on the turf. We also received in concept approval Memory Lane walk, a stroll through Memory Lane, where we will utilize the campus and light it with votive type electric candles and music, and an opportunity for all of the seniors to post their memory boards for all families to come and take a properly paced and distanced walk through campus to be able to enjoy some closure and celebrate, I think what's been a really important part of their journey through school and the completion of 12th grade. I think that the planning groups for that are incredibly thoughtful. They've put forward detailed plans. I want to give a shout out to the planning groups that have come together, the school administration, the senior class presidents, the students who gave us their survey ideas and families, and the committee of parents who came together, as well as Project Graduations leadership, all of those kind of working. We're hopeful to really continue to, as Adam said, acknowledging that we all wish we could do the work as the way we've always enjoyed closure with our students, really trying to hold on to a thoughtful opportunity to celebrate them. There are other closing routines. For example, Mr. WHS kind of is actually usually the event that leads up to the start of senior week. It's a very kind of town favorite for us and a special event each year. And so they are moving those types of activities to virtual celebrations. And there's a combination of events that are new that we've added that the group came up with as celebrations that would be viable for now, and recognitions, and then the things that are anchors like awards night, baccalaureate, and Mr. WHS will go virtual. And we will stage those as they would have been placed in senior week, kind of maintaining the traditional momentum that has led towards baccalaureate and then graduation. So I think that I just want to acknowledge and celebrate the good work of the teams that have come together to do that. And again, Westborough parents and residents and people really wanting to celebrate our kids. We will continue to, my role is coordination and to make sure that they are getting the support they need, and that we have the Board of Health and your blessing for all of the implementation pieces of those events. And I will continue to work with Brian and the administration to bring forward the plans until the layout of each of those is looked at by Steve Bakari and given the blessing. I would say that again, I want to highlight two other pieces, and then I want Daniel to be able to speak about attendance. Food delivery structure continues, and actually this week we did push out the translated memo that went to the bagged lunches and breakfast to say that if people were facing additional food insecurity, they could call the town hotline or email. And I believe that I talked to Celia Dore, and she said that she had received additional calls from families based upon that memo. So we will look to expand the food service delivery as needed in the community by coordinating with the food bank and other town organizations. So we're a member of that board, an active participant of the community, circling up to meet the needs of our families and those who live in our community. That's inclusive of senior citizens as well. Across all of our community, our goal is that as public schools, we're plugged into the work of supporting our community. I would say the last piece is my weekly attendance to the task force meetings have been productive. They've been able to utilize a Google Doc form that's coordinating a ticketing system that allows them to streamline the service delivery that they want to provide to people in the community that are seeking help. And I think it's just a really positive energy that will give us some long-term changes in practice in the community that are really strong. I mean, I think for a community of our size to develop a resource ticketing system where you can get supports across a range of needs and connected to the right people is a really sophisticated and well-framed way to support our community. And I'm excited to be able to play a small role in trying to help with that. And really, Youth and Family Services and Care Presley, I want to give a shout out to her and to Christy Williams and her work in providing leadership during this time to coordinate services. I'm immensely proud of how Westborough has responded during this time to support our community and to make sure that what people need, we're there to provide for them. Actively, they've really looked at doing a mask delivery to anyone in the community and those in need that need masks. That's actually, you can call the hotline if you need that. The food, as I just mentioned. And this week, kind of a feel-good piece, we started an art and crafts collection, and they're going to be put into gifted bags, prepped and prepared, such that families, that when we rotate out to the food delivery, we can ask them if they would like some gifts of art supplies and things to lift the spirits of their family as they need new stuff to look at and work with. And then those are being made available to all across the community, seniors, anyone who wants to, spice up their home time with some new arts and crafts activities. So I think they're doing some puzzle exchanges. And so it's just a really feel good sense. And I want to thank Westborough Connects, the Recreation Department, and some other organizations who have taken point on that. So really good news to see how the task force is doing both kind of emotional well-being, support for supplies, and then down to masks and food and financial questions and support. So I'm feeling very good about how that work is going. That's it for really the general update. And I think we'll take comments or thoughts on any of that afterward if you would like to. But I think you see a stabilization of our efforts and a maintenance of service in this new methodology that I feel good about. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel and let him speak about attendance across district, which we're tracking as a really important benchmark.
Thank you. I want to talk about attendance and then mention a couple of other things about distance learning. Just first, as far as attendance is concerned, we're pleased to see that our attendance rate still is very high. The absentee numbers at the elementary school, we're looking at, participation of 95%. And so that's just a very high number. At the high school, we're in the 90% range, and the trailing group is the seniors, which Adam, I'm sure that's not you. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to all your classes. Right, so, but there's a little bit of sloughing going on among the seniors at the high school. But the participation rate is really been phenomenal, and it's a tribute to the kids, their families, and to our teachers and how well they're doing at drawing the kids in and having them actively engaged. And to that point, I just did want to indicate that, and kudos, as Amber said, to our staff and the amazing work that they're doing, putting together curriculum in a way that they never imagined they would be doing, and using technology they weren't familiar with. I talked to friends of mine who are in other industries, and the amount of change is just not nearly as massive as it is in education. There's when it comes to office work, it's just it is different, but it's not as radically different. Ours is a people business, and it's all about it. Really relationships with individual kids, and so I think our faculty has done an amazing job. Also, our administrators have this the time of year where we're doing we would be bringing in families to learn about the transition to Mill Pond and also the transition from Mill Pond to Gibbons. And our faculty, our administrators have done an amazing job working on those transitions and putting together virtual experiences for our families to be able to get acquainted and answer questions and know what to expect next year. And also, we're all transitioning into this next phase. I mentioned earlier about hiring, but not only hiring, there's class formation, and that's a lot of meetings and discussions that we usually do, and sitting down face to face. And so we're orchestrating systems to make sure there's this pass off that you need to do when the teachers are still here. It's not something that happens in the summer when just the administrators are around. You need teachers talking to teachers about what's the best makeup of taking the third graders and moving into fourth graders, and what's the right mix for kids given their personalities, their learning styles, and all of that for next year. So we're in the midst of figuring out of how to do that virtually and make sure it's effective, because usually you're in a room and you've got sticky notes and 3x5 cards and you're shuffling them, and we obviously can't do it in the same way, but we want to make it as equally as systematic and tangible for the teachers to have productive conversations. So and I guess the one other thing that I would mention that Amber and I have already started talking about is we need to be preparing for what the fall is going to look like and be ready for different scenarios. I don't think anybody's really expecting us to come back at 100% in September, but we would be very excited if we would. But we need to start shifting our conversations into what we are going to need to do to prepare for various scenarios. What that would look like if there's A days and B days, for example, where half the kids are coming on one day and another half are coming on another day. In addition to that, we need to prepare for the fact that we could come back and then have to close down again mid-year next year. So those are two likely scenarios that we'll be talking about and preparing for, and we fully expect to reach out to community members for input. I mean, if you think about it, this is like a mini strategic plan that we're needing to do, like in short order. Is we're going to want to dipstick back into parents, to our faculty, obviously get the input of the school committee, but we'll have to really have conversations over the next several weeks to get data so that we can make smart decisions between now and late summer. And as you can see, the last thing I'll say, our governor is very cautious about what he's going to tell us and when he's going to tell us. And right now, everybody's wondering what next week's going to be like in terms of what's open and what's not. And we don't know that yet. So I wouldn't expect the state to give us clear guidance on what the schools are going to be doing in the fall until the middle to the late part of the summer.
Just to add to that, and Daniel's comments are thoughtful to helping you to continue to stage ahead. And again, we'll bring each of these pieces to you as we move forward. I do think we'll try to get a jump before the 18th on writing to families and encourage everyone to give us, some breathing space, because I think what happens is, and again, it's totally understandable, at each of the releases of new information, there's this flood of email for people as they feel anxious about the new news, wanting kind of answers, and they want to give us their input. I recognize and love and support all of that, but it also can be overwhelming as it funnels to us at the administrative level. And so there's always a balance between, we're not looking to say to people we don't want to hear from them, but I think encouraging people to give us a little space to reach out to them once we've done some planning. We are anticipating that. We'll try to put out another communication to families this week that really speaks to how we're staging things forward, and that we promise to keep them in the loop. I think that we're just going to need time to feel our way. Right now, I think Baker will probably focus on whether or not he's going to allow any semblance of summer school, summer programming, getting childcare in place, which summer programming at the school level provides as some people return to work. So there's a lot on their plate as well, and I'm trying to do for him what I'm asking we need as well, and not jettison emails up there to be like, hey, try. A lot of people want to get an early preview, and it's just we have to give them time to do their planning and then be ready to respond as well. So I think the next 2 weeks again are going to lead to a flurry of anxiety as people are trying to picture the next steps. And I think the best we can do, and you as a school committee, is continue to be reassuring to people that we'll be thoughtful along the way. Daniel and I will be working with the union to probably come together and set up a working group that can negotiate as needed. We'll talk to the union and make sure that they can be responsive, as many of these pieces might need to be ironed out in the summer. And that's ramping up right now. So there's just so many layers. we've enjoyed taking, I think, maybe 4 days of breath without any new changes. It's literally only been, I think, 4 days or 5 since, we did the pickup stuff, took time to iron out. So each of those mechanics, if it looks smooth when it happens, is because we did a lot of legwork. So by the time an email goes out that looks like it makes sense and people are happy to get their things in an orderly way, on the backside of that planning, the admin team and the teachers have been working really hard to figure out how to do that. So, I think we've enjoyed, I think, 3 days now of no new changes, 4 days today, and then we're waiting the 18th. So, Daniel, do you have other pieces you want to add? Those are really good details.
No, that's it. Thank you.
So that's our update as it stands on the current status of implementation, and I'd open up to any comments and questions you might have.
Thank you. Any comments, questions on the board? That was a lot of information. Oh, Lisa, you ready?
Oh yeah. So I just had so as part of the, just to put out there is that the education commissioner, had sort of blocked alternative learning days for next year as of last July. And our discussions were surrounding that we would only be doing alternative learning days. This would be our final year. So I'm bringing that up because I think a part of our decision making probably has to do with the state commissioner's guidelines of whether this is all doable in the age of Corona or the age of remote learning. So I think those are factors that we haven't heard from. What are the guidelines for the past, May 18th? And I guess the next question I have is that along the same lines of the state giving us guidelines, there were some changes in the calendar piece. And so I'm just asking about it because as towns were removing or keeping their vacations and changing their end of year calendar by subtracting days, it became really clear to our own system that we had done all the right things. We had, we're up and running, as you said, and really well. As soon as we closed, there were just a few planning days, which was not much, and yet we were up and running, by mid-March. And so the commissioner changed some of the guidelines to accommodate towns like ourselves that had completed, do you have 5 extra days added in? You could subtract them if you did this, but he also gave guidelines for towns like ours to create some exemption for being able to not utilize our snow days in some form, to keep it to 180 versus 185. So I'm just asking if there's ever been any thought about that for our end of year.
With that, Amber, you want to comment on that?
Well, I think we should be in school till the 22nd, which is why we've requested to make our last day the 17th. And I think that following your line of thinking, Lisa, because we were up and running, we looked at the status of our days, and Daniel and I looked at the analysis of like what we thought made sense about how we had used time for accountability, and felt that the day of the 17th, met the state guideline and our expectations for a reasonable completion date. So that's where we selected the 17th. So I actually think we're following your train of thinking, and that's why we applied.
Yeah. So we took the governor, the commissioner's memo on just the what you articulated there, the exemptions that were being given for communities like ours that were not spending a week or 2 weeks preparing and getting their systems up, that basically saying they would entertain a appeal, that we didn't have to go to 185 days, that we could subtract out days based on how quickly we got up and running. We basically made the argument, I mean, this is what Sarah had in her memo, was that 181 days would put us to the 17th, and that would basically be the same as communities that worked through April vacation. And the communities that work through April vacation basically were working through April vacation in large part because they spent so much more time getting up and running.
I want to apologize. I must have missed it. I think I might have missed the piece, which I'm not sure how, but I must have missed it.
No, that's okay. We applied right away because we had to, requesting that we could make the 17th our last day, and now we're waiting because it would have been following your exact train of thought. The 22nd would have been our last day of school, and we feel it's much more reasonable to meet the 181 benchmark. So we're kind of waiting to hear, and I think we're in good shape for the 17th to, I think, be the proper closure date for Westborough.
Will that give teachers more time at the end of the year to come back and remove, or will they already be out from the 2 days that you mentioned earlier?
Their days would follow. That's their last day as well, typically. So, I think again, after that, that's their contract last day is the same day as the last day of students. So that would back them up as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else on distance learning or any of the information we were just presented?
Nope.
We're good on that. All right. Thank you. So our next thing is the budget, which we discussed last meeting. Irene and Amber gave us a presentation and outlined possible budget reductions, and we had time to think about that and consider the options. So tonight we will be looking for a motion and a vote on moving those budget reductions forward.
So I would see, Dana, if you could pull that document up so that they can see if they have any other formal discussion. Otherwise, I think in terms of preparedness, an opportunity tonight to look at the budget discussion. I think we covered this pretty well at our last meeting. You've had more time then to reflect on it and the impacts and needs. I think also to think we submitted this number in anticipation because they pay attention to our meetings as well. Christy has this number and is kind of has carried it forward in her preliminary totals when she met with the FinCom, I think 2 weeks ago. So they've seen this number from us. We then have been invited to, they knew that we would be voting at this meeting on the 13th, and then anticipated that they could invite us to just ask any detailed questions on the 18th. So I think our procedures, are following a good protocol of timeline here. I am certainly recommending that you accept these reductions and you would have a new base number for the FY21 budget. We acknowledge and recognize that these cuts will, have real impact. At the same time, we also know that we're facing pretty serious revenue concerns over the next year and a half. We're currently in them right now. You've heard Christy speak about, loss in revenue in FY20 and how they're trying to absorb that this year. And then also looking into 21 where they're predicting well over $1 million. So again, I think this is a first step that makes sense. And I believe this is a number that we brought forward that was thoughtful and well framed. And I would be seeking your support tonight to vote in favor of the reductions as I presented.
So I would agree that we had a very good discussion at our last meeting, and I would renew my motion to accept the budget changes, which would reduce our budget by $128,195 for a new revised school budget of $45,273,375.
I see someone, Daniel, scrolling down to
Show the bottom line.
check your number. Yeah, I can't read that, but okay.
I can blow it up.
Yeah, why don't you increase that size to make sure we have a vote that's got the right number?
200%.
There we go.
Better. So it was 120, 195 for salary. Yeah, you read
I
that.
just, the salaries and the balance of it being an expense total for a total budget change of $375,535.72 and a budget total of $54,705,160.28.
Thank you. Great. Let's have a second on Steve's motion and then we can open up to further discussion if there's any.
I'll second.
Thank you. So any other further comments on the budget?
I had a question about, someone brought forward about the teacher salaries, and I just had a quick question about, you had talked about it last time. It was that there would be a reduction based upon, I think it was retirements and then reentry of some teachers at a lower level entry point, and then a deferral into January of 2021. I just wanted to verify that that was still an accurate depiction of what was planning to happen. And I guess the question that came to me was that what was really happening with the other 3 positions, and were those, is it my understanding, and did you bring this up last time, that those were 0.2s and 0.4s that would be added in versus 4, 3 other positions that were taken out?
Yeah. And Irene, you can add in as well. So the salary line items, we would be seeking to tighten down the hiring profile to bring in less expensive staff in some advantaged positions where we think that's possible. That said, you can't enter a district like Westborough and have no experience and come in and teach chemistry. It's not going to fly. So we averaged of the positions we need to hire an authentic recognition that we can look for some lower hires in some of those positions. And so it's realistic, and that would give us some leverage savings. And then by deferring the hiring of a position until later in the year, I can have some additional savings. And then we deferred the hiring of para till mid-year for the 12-5. So it's strategic, and it follows. Yes, you're right. The others are of the high school positions that get added there. They tend to be 0.2s or a 0.1 of like existing faculty who are picking up additional teaching, and it has to follow their contract level. So, those are going to be, but again, so those will be more expensive, but in smaller increments, and also limit potentially any additional health coverages. So again, trying to be strategic in this work, following some of the approaches that we saw the town manager take in the way she deferred some positions and waited in order to get revenue savings out of 21. I thought that was strategic, and so I took some of that same action. So that would stand as I presented from last time.
And those retirements were known not at the time when we developed the budget, so it was after the time. So this is just something that came along after the fact, so we were able to work with it.
Right, because in December, we don't know who's retiring, but now that we're further along and we haven't had town meeting yet, some of that information is available now that wasn't available.
Exactly. That's good.
So I just had last night I watched the end of the Board of Selectmen meeting, and Town Manager Christy Williams did mention that the town was she was gonna meet with just her town finance team and look to do a 1/12 budget for July. I'm assuming it was just in case we don't get to town meeting, which is now hopefully John Earl spoke of postponing that now till June 20th. So it gives us more time to, pull stuff like this together. But if that didn't happen, is that something that we should consider as well? I don't know how you do that or what that entails, but I would love to get this budget passed and move it to next year, but it could be a situation that we're in. So I just wanted to bring it up.
I would certainly, again, I think you could direct Irene and I through a motion to develop a 1/12 budget, but I think logically it's, to stay parallel with the preparations for backups. I think it makes sense, and Irene and I could move in the direction of bringing that back for the next school committee meeting. I think, again, I think it's been smart for us to keep the town planning and the school planning fairly parallel, because coming into town meeting, they need to kind of marry together to get to a place of finalization. So, I, I think it's a worthy discussion for you guys to have and direct us to develop.
Okay. And also, Amber and I have been invited to a town finance meeting, the smaller meeting that we do with the finance director and chair of the board of selectmen, and Christy Williams also, and a few other department heads on Monday. So maybe we would get more. I wanted to bring it up now, but maybe on Monday we would get some more direction from the town on that as well. So, any thoughts on that? We still have Steve's motion pending as well.
Just a comment on John Arnold's discussion of the town meeting, which has now been postponed to June 20th, and also the concept of the 1/12 budget. One of the points he brought up is that the 1/12 budget can't be on any, quote, new expenditures that didn't happen in the current fiscal year. And so it's not as easy as it seems, apparently. So I would suggest that perhaps discussion of what the base number is that you're taking 1/12 of might be different than what we think. Therefore, it may very well be this current year's fiscal budget and not the future one that we proposed for next year.
Yeah, that's my understanding, that it's the current year's budget. But Irene or someone might know better.
Well, I think we would, I mean, to Steve's point as well, I would anticipate then that the finance meeting on Monday would be an important one to get the level of detail for that preparation, so that we do it thoughtfully and correctly, give you what you need to look at, to think about, and, lay that out so that you can discuss it at the next school committee meeting.
Right. And maybe we don't need a motion on that, and just a directive that if it comes,
That's fine.
that we need that, you would bring that to the next school committee meeting.
I could certainly look into that, but my understanding is it's the average of the latest budget that you have is 1/12 of what your current budget is what you carry forward.
Okay.
It's not based upon a future budget, it's based upon your current budget. Not that you're going to use your current budget, but that's based upon an estimate. So I can look into that more.
Okay, yeah, it just might be something, like I said, that we need to look into.
Definitely, we'll come prepared.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the budget in front of us for fiscal year 21 and Steve's motion?
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
I just wanted to circle back to the citizens request comment. That was something that he had asked about the budget going into the fall. And if for some reason we're not opening, I know he had mentioned like maybe there are some cost savings there, or maybe we would revisit the budget. Of course, we don't know because everything's up in the air. But I could foresee like transportation savings or other things happening that maybe we have to, I just think we're going to be discussing this budget for a really long time until it's settled. So I just wanted to, it was just a question that I also had, and circle back to that. So
I listened very carefully to what the comments, but I think the facts are something like this. We either go ahead with a 1/12 budget, or we go ahead with a town meeting vote that votes a budget, which we hope would be the school committee's budget of this time, because we can't do anything different. We can't look into a crystal ball and know when we go to school. And therefore, we don't know how many days or months of credit we might get. I mean, it's an impossible thing to know. I suppose that if we knew by the fall town meeting that we could adjust the school department's budget, but that would be after we knew how much of a savings there might be. So I heard what was said, but I don't think there's any action we can take on it at this point in time because we just don't know.
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree with that as well. It's so much unknown, and I think we have to take it one step at a time. So whether town meeting happens and we can pass the budget or not, and then we go with the 1/12 and just take it step by step. I agree.
So we have to go with the contracts that we know, and then we do the 1/12 of that, and then we move forward, and then we adjust it accordingly.
So one last comment, and again, I'll let you move to finish the vote, and then I have a couple other comments.
I have a concern. The increase in this year's budget was due to the fact majority came from the new bus contract, which will be going on for the next school year. So we are going 1/12. Are we able to cover the additional expenses that came off of that bus contract?
Irene, do you want to comment?
So we did some accommodations already by deducting in the budget. So, there may be some modifications to the contract, according to who knows what's going to happen in the future. There's always that unknown. And so there's always the need to negotiate contracts. So we can modify it and do an MOU. And so we may be able to modify the amount of the contract, but who knows? You know what I'm saying? Where are we going to go? Are we transporting on, the first day of school as planned? We don't know, do we?
You might also be doing double runs because you're bringing in kids at different times. Like, we just have to take it one step at a time. And I think as the shepherds of those charged with running the school district, we're going to have to remain responsive and also at the same time responsive to the work of the town and our role in it as a large organization to take each fiscal step forward to contribute what we can to helping us manage the status of our finances. And I think that on the town side, they're moving in stages as well because they don't know where they've made, I think, strong general recommendations based upon what they anticipate, but until you see the revenue flow, we're going to have to be responsive moving forward. The October town meeting will be important. So again, it's one step at a time. I think we should be steady as we go. We've made this initial cut as requested and came in a little bit above where they are. We will then look to close out FY20, and if we have revenue to return to the bottom line of free cash at the town level because we had savings, that will happen. That's the natural fiscal process, and everything we can and will do will just step us through the appropriate closure of this year and then planning forward. So again, I think we fulfill each stage as it steps forward. I think this first reduction is manageable. I want to remind you all that we cut a substantial amount, 600,000+ from the original recommendation to contribute to keeping the tax rate as low as possible. I'm cautious as we move forward that we just take it one step at a time. What if we accrue some strange cost to the implementation structure that's designed by the state? We just don't know. I don't think they'll do that because they literally will be hamstringing districts that are already fiscally constrained, but we just don't know. So I'm recommending I've already recommended you approve this reduction as presented, and we just take it meeting by meeting.
Yeah, for people who are just tuning in and hadn't seen the budget process from November through March, from the start of when you first presented the budget, I believe it was even in October, there's been $1 million cut, and not an easy task, and not, as if it wouldn't change it. It changes a lot of things, and you worked very hard in that process through March, and now I think this is a really great effort, for 375,000. Yes, times are so uncertain. We have no idea if the state will level fund or cut state aid. We have no idea at this point. So to do the best we can do with what we have and what we know, I think that you have done your job well, and that I feel comfortable approving the budget as presented.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? We still have a motion and a second. So we can vote. Wait for a vote. All right, we'll do the roll call vote again. Start with Kristen.
Vincent, yes.
Okay, Raghu,
Raghu, yes.
Lisa,
Edinburgh, yes.
and Steve,
Durrett, yes.
and me, July, yes. So that is our new budget for now. Hopefully it's the last one, but you never know.
I want to return, if I could, during this budget conversation to the offset that we can make to the warrant, the K warrant article. Again, all of this doing what we can to take steps to reduce the tax impact. We can reduce the K warrant article by 106,000 at this time. And I believe it allows us to basically hold additional funds in the K revolving account such that we would have more to put against salary in that account next year. And we can then reduce the request of the warrant article by 106,000. I don't think you have to take a motion on that now. You have other meetings. I think you should just listen and take it under advisement, and then we can discuss it openly. It's on public record, which was my point in recognizing the conversation now, so that it can be discussed with AFC and that you're considering it. I believe it's a reduction you could also vote to accept at this point if you're feeling, comfortable with that. Again, we've been able to pull salaries out of that revolving account because of cost savings now on consulting and electricity and other savings. We will then leave funds in that K revolving, which will let us carry more salary there next year, thus reducing the impact by 106,000. I'm comfortable with you voting on that now. It's a very clear number. We only have like 3 salary rotations left, and then the balloon payment. So I'm confident that it's a tight number, and I believe it comes in good faith with reducing the pull on free cash, given that revenue sources are down. So you can proceed on that however you would like, Sarah. I just want to make sure that you could vote on it if you want, or you could wait.
Yeah, anyone want to weigh in on that on the committee?
Actually, the source of money for the 106, I believe, is a transfer of salary money that was not spent in this current year. Is that correct, Irene?
That's correct. It's 106,000 out of the general fund. We'll pull from various revenue sources within the general fund, and then pull the salaries off of the kindergarten into the general fund, which frees up the funds in the kindergarten account. That comes to a matter of 702,751, which would reduce that warrant to that amount.
Okay, I was more interested in the motion that I would make to transfer from unspent accounts in this current budget, $106,000 to reduce the salary, to increase the salary amount of the pre-K to, and thereby reducing the revolving fund hit in this current year. I think that's correct, isn't it?
That is correct.
So then, therefore, the warrant article needs to be modified as well.
By that same amount of money. So I would include in my motion then that we, at the first opportunity, reduce the warrant article for the pre-K next year. And I think the discussion is the warrant is published the way it is. And so the motion on the floor will be for less money by that
Exactly.
amount.
Yes.
Okay, so that's also part of my motion.
Yeah, so it's warrant Article 12.
So we
And
do-
Irene can work with Jen to clean up the motion and just make sure it meets all the benchmarks of numbers.
And then on the floor, when this town meeting happens, we amend the.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
So you
so we
need-
have, a motion by Steve, double
A second.
conditional.
A second.
Okay, sorry, it sounded like Irene for a second. I thought Irene seconded that.
No, I was just trying to clarify that was what you're supposed to say, a second.
Irene, you did second that. Okay.
Oh my God, we're losing it.
All right, okay. All right, so that's a motion by Steve and a second by Lisa. All in favor, roll call vote. Lisa. I mean,
Edinburgh, yes.
Kristen.
Vincent, yes.
And then Raghu.
Raghu, yes.
And now Lisa.
Edinburgh, yes.
And Steve with the motion.
Correct, yes.
And yes. Okay, so thank you. So that
So
kindergarten.
I want to commend Irene for the work she's doing to really press on getting these numbers tight so that we can, this is a hard way to work, moving this quickly within the current fiscal while we're also moving on 21. And I just want to thank her for the legwork she did to have those numbers prepared for us tonight.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so budget reduction, warrant article. School committee meeting dates for 2021. Andrea Machnick is very organized, and this is the time that we would usually do this. We don't actually have to vote on it, but she likes to put them in front of us, and they're in the packet, and all she kind of does is roll them over from last year. Given that we've already discussed that everything is unknown, just kind of putting it in front of you. Look for any conflicts or whatever, and you just email me. We don't have the dates yet for obviously a fall town meeting or a town meeting next March either, and we usually do the pre-meetings before then. So Andrea will fill all that in as we go forward. But if you see any conflicts or different dates or whatever, just feel free to email them, and then we'll get them set obviously in the fall.
I would just at this time also note, and I hate to anticipate this with you, but given the status of the world and the volatility of our planning and the need to open up under what are going to be complicated circumstances, I do anticipate that I would be requesting Sarah to call meetings with you beyond the closure of your next two meetings. And as long as we can bring a quorum together, I think it's going to remain very important that for the operation of the district, you're kept updated and actions that require votes from you. We're going to have to all find a way. And now that we've got our virtual stuff almost down seamlessly, I believe we could do that and want to plan on keeping you updated. So just putting that into the record as well. And thanking you ahead of time for being willing to do that, because I know it will be different.
Yes, but I think we're, like you said, we're all around and well versed in the remote meeting. So even if someone does sneak off to the beach, we could find them. So you're not too far away now. So anyway, that is the dates for next year. And then the superintendent's review process. It is, the second meeting in May when we usually start this process. We begin to think about the process and then complete our formal review at our June 10th meeting. The review is based on the Massachusetts Model System for Educator Evaluation, specific to superintendents, and the performance level in the model has rubrics. There are two documents that you receive in your packet tonight, and I could also email them to you individually. We review Amber on her goals that she gives us, and then these standards: instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. The rubric provides a guide with indicators and elements of each standard that can be followed to complete the review. And if you remember, Amber has set us up well. I think she knew we were going to have a tough end of the year. She aligned her goals with each of the standards this year. So I will put at our next meeting on the 27th, Amber provides us typically with a self-evaluation of her progress and completion of the goals. And then we use that and some other information to compile our reviews. We do individual reviews. I'll create a Google document and push it out to each of you individually. And then you can send it back to me individually by like June 8th. That Monday before our meeting on Wednesday, June 10th, and then I'll compile them, and then Amber will see the review all together, at that meeting or prior to that meeting. I keep saying independently because we don't want to accidentally have a quorum or a meeting by accident trying to review our superintendent. So
that would be bad. Two things to note as well, guys. I usually am tracking my own goals, more closely this time of year. And I have not as much as typically because we've been so derailed by some of this other types of planning. So I'll pull together a reflection that captures what I have, been able to achieve, and we'll, reset other goals to shift them forward. And I just want to note that last year we decided that we keep a regular, 360 cycle where faculty are able to provide comments. And after a rotation where I think there was some survey fatigue from them, we talked about doing every other year so that we could get kind of a better, robust response. But I'm always open to modifying that. Certainly, I don't think our staff need any surveys this year. They're already stretched. But I did speak to Sarah today to say I always remain open to that feedback and don't want anyone to perceive that in moving into a rotation of a survey every other year, that we're not open to, hearing performance feedback. So I told her I'm happy to push out a note to faculty and indicate that it's the off year for survey, but that if they feel they have comments they want to submit, they can email Sarah as the chair and she will bring those forward as part of my review. So I just think it's important that we stay in a transparent place where feedback's part of our cultural norm, but I don't want to burden people with surveys. And that's actually a decision we had made at the close of last year that we were pretty comfortable with. So I just want to add that to the notes. And if you're comfortable with that, I'll push out a note to faculty, letting them know if they have. If the other is more substantial, it's anonymous, it's a variety of other things. And so I would like to stick with the plan to do that every other year. And if that changes, again, I'm open to modifying it.
thank you. That sounds good to everyone. And any questions about the review? I know Regu was your first superintendent's review, so you can email or call me directly if you have any questions, but it's fairly straightforward.
Will do. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. All right, so our last piece tonight is the Aspet Valley Collaborative third quarterly update.
Thank you, and we'll be well on time tonight to finish up early. So I just want to state that we do 4 annual updates. It's part of state requirements. Typically, you would have had the budget from them by now. Given the fiscal upheaval that they are facing, they are currently redevising their budget and looking for adjustments. So we as a board will be reviewing their budget later. I will have it, by June, I would imagine, to forward to you as the last report. But they're currently trying to, a large portion of their financial stability has come from transportation over the last several years with the van pool work. And they are bringing in revenues, but there are reductions and contract negotiations, as we know, on our own side of the fence. So Aspet Valley Collaborative is working diligently to come forward with a budget they believe is accurate, viable, and manageable for next year. And so I don't anticipate that has large increases of costs from a district standpoint. But I will present the budget when it comes forward. My update to you tonight is just to acknowledge that they are revising their budget as well as we just did tonight. All right. And I will follow up with you as soon as I have a print budget to share. And that's it, Sarah. That's it for tonight.
Thank you. All right, so then I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Thank you. I need a second.
Second.
And then another roll call vote. Kristen,
Vincent, yes.
Lisa? Oh,
Edinburgh,
sorry.
yes.
No, it's Ragu. Ragu.
Raghu, yes.
Thank you. Lisa?
Edinburgh, yes.
Steve?
All right, yes.
And me, Adula, yes. So we are adjourned.